So I've been complaining about the common Lucian build for quite a while now, and of course I'm talking about the First Strike variant with Nami that is very popular right now. Taking First Strike as your keystone, going into Static Shift first item, Rapid Fire second, and, whatever it might be third. And I believe the entire premise behind this build is diluted, misled, and overall very useless. And that is because it is focused on one singular burst auto attack. And thinking about the role of ADC and more importantly the role of Lucian, both of these things have the goal of doing DPS, carrying late game team fights, being ways to cut through tanks, cut through frontline, being able to play, with just be a consistent form of DPS really. That's what the ADC's goal is once he hits his item spikes. And this variant of Lucian does not do that. It does a nice chunk here or there to a squishy in mid lane in the mid game, but if you fall behind at all, you're pretty much useless. You don't do any damage to tanks. You don't scale very well, because the entire goal of that build is to have one singular burst combo instead of being consistent DPS. And so today, Jackie Love of Top Esports made my heart absolutely sing, because he did the correct Lucian build. He was the first person I've seen all season, really since Lucian's been meta. He's the first person I've seen do the correct Lucian build. I would like to give some credit to Team Liquid here because they took away the Nami, which I do believe is the reason Jackie Love did this, because instead of Nami he had Milio as a pairing, which in general is just better than Lucian Nami, I'll be quite honest with you, but that's a talking point for another video. Either way, Jackie Love did the correct build. So let's start out with the rune choice. He takes Press the Attack. Already you have a focus on DPS in the lane phase, in the mid game, in team fights. This rune is focused on doing damage. It also synergizes very well with Lucian's kit because he has a double shot, which procs Press the Attack, two shots of Press the Attack. Also, being in Yellow Tree, you get access to Cut Down, so you can do more damage to tanks. Already, from rune selection, you have more DPS potential, more damage output than the First Strike build, straight up. And so, Press the Attack really is the only optimal rune for Lucian. It's by far and away the best. It synergizes with his kit. It's focused on doing damage, doing DPS. And quite honestly, First Strike is overrated because Lucian's such a short-range character that in lane phase and mid-game, it's very easily can get knocked off. And you don't actually end up getting any value of it. Sure, it adds nicely to that burst combo, but again, thinking about the goal of ADC and the goal of Lucian, we want to be doing consistent DPS, not one singular burst here and there. And as you can see in these clips, Jackie Love is doing just as much burst with this build as he would be with the First Strike build because of the Milio buffs. And so, in terms of actual itemization, Jackie Love goes into Kraken Slayer first item, and similar to Press the Attack, this is already focused on doing damage. Again, the Kraken Slayer procs synergize really well with his double hit passive, getting 2 procs of that. The stats are really good, and it's just, again, focused on doing damage. The First Strike build going into Static Shift first is focused on wave clear, which ADCs don't want. ADC's main goal is not to be a good wave clear machine, unless you're a Sivir, I guess. ADC's goal is to do damage in team fights, and Kraken Slayer does that. He goes into Navori Quickblade second, which I really, really like. Sometimes I like to go Essence Reaver second if I don't bring Presence of Mind, but I am assuming he brought Presence of Mind, so that remedies the mana issues on Lucian, so you don't really need Essence Reaver second in this case. He builds Navori second, and this is great. Why? Because Lucian is a completely a champion that's very dependent on cooldowns. He wants to have his abilities consistently cycling, and he wants to have consistent access to his damage, his kit, getting those double shot refreshes and consistently refreshing those cooldowns. And again, the First Strike build does not do that. It's focused on one burst, whereas Kraken Slayer Navori, you already have more of a focus, much more of a focus on doing damage, having constant access to your abilities, being able to get a lot of rotations out in team fights, assuming you're consistently hitting the enemy team. And so as the game ends, he was building into LDR third, which is very, very good. This only adds to your tank killing ability in combination with Cut Down. It's very, very strong. A really optimal third item. I can see him going into things like Bloodthirster or Phantom Dancer last for survivability or more move speed for kiting. Again, this is just the optimal Lucian build. It's focused on what an ADC should be focused on. That's DPS, being a consistent source of damage in team fights for your team. And, instead of doing this one poke chunk burst build that First Strike does that looks terrible if you get behind, feels terrible to play if you get behind, this type of build, this regular crit Lucian build with press the attack, is always going to be guaranteed value. You're going to scale much better. You're not going to have a power trough in the mid game. You're going to do a lot more damage to tanks, and it's just a much nicer build to play. And I don't understand why people believe that the First Strike build is better. I don't understand why people are overvaluing the Lucian Nami combo so much. Lucian is a completely valid champion to pick in any circumstance if you build properly. He's a very, very strong champion, and especially comboed with supports like Milio, with Braum. And this champion is just completely misunderstood by professional players. And I gotta say, huge credit to Jackie Love for doing this build properly. I will say, I'm pretty sure it's entirely because TL took away the Nami and they were forced onto the Milio pairing. But again, I think Milio is better than Nami in the first place. But again, huge props to Jackie Love for being really the first person that I've seen do the proper build in a long time. It made my heart sing, and you could see in the game that he could play with a lot more confidence. He had a lot more DPS, a lot more agency to play with in team fights because his build was focused on DPS, doing damage, and having consistent ability refreshes with Navori and things of that nature. So that's all I wanted to say for this one. Let me know what you guys think about modern day Lucian builds with First Strike, with Nami combos, and everything of that nature. I think it's an interesting discussion, and I'm just really glad that I got to see the correct build out of Jackie Love this morning. Thanks for watching. See you next time.